Welcome to our third Los Angeles Evolve Law event. We're really excited to have you all here, and this is going to be a fun one and a little different than the other two we've done. It's all Darwin Talks, which are kind of 5-minute TED-style talk format. So you'll hear from 10 different entrepreneurs and a guest speaker at the beginning.
You're looking at me in a very strange way. So Vanessa from Legal Tech will be doing 10 minutes, just in case people want to throw things. She will not be finished at the 5-minute mark. So we wanted to start off tonight by thanking our sponsor for tonight's event, Thomson Reuters. So round of applause for Thomson Reuters. And also a special shout out to Davis Wright Tremaine, our founding law firm member, and our wonderful MC for the evening will be Lawton Penn. I'll introduce Lawton in a moment. So just a little bit of background on Evolve Law. We started it was just about a year ago. We were standing in LA at Blank Spaces, and people had been asking Jules and I about Evolve Law and said, where's your website? We're like, no, this is just a side thing that we do. So it's a year later, and we have 85 members, I think, and counting. We're really focused on not just growing the community, but bringing in some more law firms as test beds for technology. And we're excited that many of our members have seen some success. We do drink our own Kool-Aid. We did a membership survey and asked people what they wanted to see, what we were doing great, and what we weren't doing so great. We've expanded past events. We now have a podcast. Please check that out. It's on iTunes and SoundCloud. We, of course, continue to blog, and so it's been a lot of fun, and thank you for coming this evening. Big part of our membership is having people actually see and touch the technology. So before you leave, we won't let you leave until you go over there and check out the demos from some of our members and see some of the technology. So we are going to do the 10 Darwin Talks plus our special guest, Vanessa. And then we'll have a bit of time for people to drink the wine, finish the food, and visit the demo tables. So I would like to introduce Lawton Penn, who is with Davis Wright Tremaine's De Novo. And De Novo is like a consulting piece or our division within Davis Wright Tremaine, and they're redesigning legal service delivery. Very exciting, exciting new way of a law firm interacting with their clients. And Davis Wright Tremaine did win Innovative Law Firm of the Year last year at ILTA. So we asked everyone to say who their favorite lawyer is, real or fictional. And so Lawton's favorite lawyer is Atticus Finch, because she's just reread To Kill a Mockingbird with her 8th grader. And one surprising fact about Lawton is that in 1972, Ted Bundy was over having cocktails with her parents, and she shook hands with Ted Bundy, which, as a huge Criminal Minds fan, I found that really interesting. So we're going to turn it over to Lawton, who is going to run the show.
Thank you so much. So super excited about this program tonight. We have a really great lineup of speakers. All of us have taken really different paths to where we are here tonight, but I think we all share the common vision that the legal profession needs a serious tune-up. We need a lot more fresh ideas about how we can leverage technology better, how we can design teams to get the work done far more strategically, creatively, and how we can get much of the inefficiency and waste out of the system through better process. So tonight we all get to become smarter. We're going to sit and listen to a really esteemed group of forward thinkers in legal tech. And when I say esteemed, we have a handball. We also have competitive athletes in the areas of smiling, grocery bagging, and water polo. Thankfully, all this learning is going to happen in a really safe and peaceful environment, because fortunately in our speaker lineups we do have a lifeguard. We have a Red Cross paramedic, a Green Beret wannabe, didn't actually become one, a master meditator, and someone who speaks Swedish. We're hoping to hold everyone's speakers to 5 minutes. I've got a few tools to help us. I've got my phone, so I'm going to put on the timer. When I hold up the 1, because I haven't met all the speakers, so I want to make sure you all know what's going on here. When I hold up the 1, it doesn't mean you're in first place or that you're a winner. It means we have 1 minute to go.
But you are a winner.
Everyone's a winner, everyone gets a trophy, we all get, yeah. And then I have this great bell system, and if I could show you right now, it makes a lovely chime when I start dinging it. So that'll be your cue that it's really time. Like, really stop talking. So, hang tight, hopefully we won't need to use those. First up, our keynote is on the problem with law. So let's set the stage. Let's talk about all that, those wonderful opportunities. We'll describe them that way. And Vanessa Davis from LegalZoom is going to guide us through that. Her favorite lawyer is the notorious RBG. That's Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Now, poor Vanessa, she does struggle with a love-hate relationship with Lifetime movies. She simply cannot take her eyes off, it's sort of like watching a bad car crash, can't take her eyes off how they villainize working women who choose alternative careers outside the household. Apparently she's working through a few personal issues. As a mother of 4 girls who works full-time, I'm with you, Vanessa, we can talk offline. So I'll let you get started.
That was, in fact, the interesting fact about me, that I have a weird obsession with Lifetime movies. All right, I guess I'm going to solo. My name is Vanessa. I am the VP of Legal Research and Product Development at LegalZoom, which means I and my team are in charge of the products and services that we sell, maintaining the quality, trying to sell them, things like that. Trying to think of anything else interesting about me. I've been working. I like stripes and stripes. I thought that was sort of a kicky idea. So the problem with law, I did a little editorializing before I even started with the problems of law, because I think we can probably all agree that there's more than one. So one of the things we like to talk about at LegalZoom is shining a light on the middle. We all know that there's the top 1% of lawyers and firms that get a lot of attention. The AmLaw 100, AmLaw 200, and everyone pays a lot of attention to them. If you go to a conference, if you read a magazine, people treat them like it's Us Weekly or People, right? Like it's, you know, who's going with who and who's staying. So they're doing fine. I think everyone can agree they're doing fine. Profits per partner might be a little bit down, but we're not really worried about them. So the 15% below the poverty line also get a little bit of attention. They have some nonprofits working for them. They have government entities working for them. And although we could probably all do more pro bono hours, not me, I'm great. No, I don't do it all. And we could give more money. There's a lot of attention being paid to that 15%. So one of the things we like to focus on is the 84% in the middle, which is most of my friends, everyone in this room, most everyone in this room, I don't want to say too much. Maybe there's people outside of the 84% here, but most of our friends, our family, small businesses, our corner restaurants are in this 84% that can't really access the law and has a little bit of a problem. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. So I'm going to do this by taking off our lawyer hats, and I want to put on legal consumer hats, whatever those look like, and meet Julie. Julie is our copyright problem. She is our cruise director for this. I was worried because a couple people here are too young to know who Julie is, which made me nervous. So Julie has a problem. Julie's behind in her mortgage. What is she going to do? If she's like most people, she's not going to do anything, right? She might call her friend or her dad, something like that, but she's probably not going to do anything. Why? I'm missing a slide here. So over 100 million people are living with civil justice problems, and most of them don't turn to an attorney. That's These are the examples of civil justice problems. They did a survey of this recently because Americans don't think their problems are civil justice problems. They think they're social problems, moral problems, private problems that don't involve a lawyer, or just bad luck. So nobody's going to reach out to a lawyer for bad luck. But say Julie has something that makes her call a lawyer, or makes her think she needs advice. She gets a letter from the bank. Does she need a lawyer? Well, if Julie's like most people, she recognizes that the solution is either DIY or full service representation, because anything in the middle is going to cause some UPL problems. So Julie either has to choose between doing it herself or paying a lot of money for a lawyer. Okay. She wants options, but those aren't available to her, right? It's anything beyond simple help. She wants a phone call, she wants some chat, but that's not ready. So which lawyer should she choose? Say she gets to choose a lawyer at this point. She probably is going to pick the orange guy because he seems really appealing. How's Julie going to find the right lawyer? Well, and there's some debate about this online, but mostly people find lawyers through word of mouth or online searches. And if it's word of mouth, that's not really a good gauge of quality or finding the right lawyer. Just because your cousin had a good experience with an estate planning lawyer doesn't mean that's the right person for your foreclosure issue. So let's say she goes online. About 40% of small law firms don't have websites. And that's the kind of people that Julie's probably going to be able to reach out to. Of the ones that have websites, they don't really make it easy for Julie to get in touch with them. 68% don't have an email address on their homepage, and 27% don't have a phone number. And the ones that do have websites, one-third of them are ready for mobile. They're mobile ready. So Julie is facing a lot of obstacles in finding the lawyer she needs. And once she picks out her lawyer, she's faced with this problem. Can she afford it? If Julie's like most middle-class Americans, she makes about $5,000 a month. And after taxes, housing, insurance, things like that, she's maybe got a little bit left at the top for legal services, for entertainment, for clothes. If she's at the bottom of the demographic, she's going to have to choose between housing, insurance, and legal help. And the problem keeps getting worse, right? Median rates keep rising in spite of all the attention that's being paid to flat fees, alternative fee arrangements. Those mostly exist at the top of the market, not in Julie's situation. Past 10 years, it's gotten even worse. Non-legal costs rose 20%, and legal costs rose 75%. So this is the situation Julie's facing. You think of all the Julies out here that have a problem, the few that recognize it's a legal problem, the fewer still that reach out to a lawyer, only to be turned away by outrageous and unpredictable billing. So this tiny little bit in the center is currently the Julies that have access to legal help. So this is what we talk about when we're talking about access to justice. This is what we're talking about when we talk about access to the law. And that is really the problem with the law. And if we don't fix it, I don't know, it gets red. No, these people don't have access to justice, right? That's what we're really talking about when we talk about the problem with the law. We're talking about access to information, access to lawyers, access to affordable alternatives for legal help. Thanks.
So didn't get to use my tools. That's great. Okay, so our next speaker, thank you so much, Vanessa. Our next speaker is Dan Lear from Avo. His title is Make Law Not Sugar Water. Love it. So Dan is a lawyer, a writer, and a legal industry gadfly. Definition, annoying person who provokes others into action by criticism. That's, I'm sure, well apt for you. So he currently does outreach and technology evangelism for Avo, runs a legal hackers group in Seattle. His favorite lawyers are Elspeth Tassioni, who's from The Good Wife TV show, which I haven't actually watched yet. And then in real life, it's a tie between the comedian Dimitri Martin and Stanford D School fabulous person Margaret Hagan. He is our competitive grocery bagger. He participated in a grocery bagging competition in high school. He didn't win. He didn't even make the finals. I think you chose a better profession. Nicely done.
Thank you. So, when Steve Jobs was trying to recruit John Sculley to leave Pepsi and join him at Apple, he asked him this now pretty famous question. Do you want to spend the rest of your life making sugar water, or do you want to come with me and change the world? So, I love the tech utopia that we're building really on the West Coast. These should be moving, and they're not. So I'm just going to take this and go like that. I love the dynamism, the innovative spirit, the energy that we bring to solving problems. But as I look across the tech landscape, I feel like I see a lot of sugar water. I feel like I see a lot of emoji optimization, a lot of beauticians on demand, a lot of popsicle delivery. And I just have to ask the tech community, can't we do more? Can't we do better? Can't we solve problems in, say, law? And I know law is not the sexiest area for a new technology startup, but the fact is, law touches all of our lives every day. So, like, reach into your pocket or reach into your neighbor's pocket or chubby, you're going to find probably a receipt in there. And that receipt is actually evidence of a contract. Maybe, well, since we're in LA, most of you probably drove here in your own cars. Even if, I've seen LA Story, even if you live like 2 blocks away. You still drove here in your own car. And when you were doing so, you were waiving and accepting liability the whole way. Oh, now these are moving, okay. Law does big things too. It helps to protect international refugees through asylum. Okay, this now, see now it's going. Jules, I don't understand this. It helps protect domestic violence victims from their abusers. And it helped to remake the very fabric of our society in the civil rights movement. And lawyers, like many of us, we're supposed to be the superheroes of the legal system. But we've kind of bungled that responsibility. And we've created a system that works largely for one group, lawyers. And as a result, there's lots of people who don't have meaningful access to the law or to the legal system. And that's given rise to all of the lawyer jokes that we've heard. We're going to do the lawyer jokes. So, what's 10,000 lawyers at the bottom of the ocean? A good start. Or, you know, there aren't actually any lawyer jokes because they're all true stories. Or the best known lawyer joke of them all, the one written by the bard himself, when he said, first thing we do is kill all the lawyers. But actually, if you ask a Shakespeare expert, they will tell you that what he was saying when he said that was that if we get rid of law and we get rid of lawyers, chaos reigns. So what we need to do, what we must do, frankly, is grab hold of this incredibly important, valuable cultural asset and fix it. And make it work for all of us. And frankly, it's going to take more than just lawyers. So we're going to need developers to build expert systems that answer simple, repetitive legal questions. To build platforms that will share legal information and legal forms far and wide. We need marketers to help identify the ideal legal consumer and frankly, do something that we as lawyers are terrible at doing, which is explaining why we're valuable. Explaining the value of legal services and the importance of legal services in our society. We need designers to re-enthrone the legal consumer at the center of the legal experience. And then think about remaking every single legal experience from the law office through to the courtroom. And beyond. Data engineers. Oh, we have a vast amount of largely open and freely available legal information. Let's crunch it. Let's analyze it. Let's figure out how we can help both individual divorce litigants and social science researchers who are trying to figure out what the laws that we pass say about our society. And finally, the legal bedside manner is atrocious. Let's figure out how to communicate with legal clients with empathy, to help them navigate some of the most challenging experiences of their lives. The change that our society is undergoing is, in my opinion, akin to the Industrial Revolution. I think that practically no social institution will be untouched by the wave of disruption that is washing across our society. And we here on the West Coast, in Seattle, where I'm from, here in LA, or even I know in Northern California, which you guys like to pretend doesn't exist, we are ideally positioned to have a significant impact. But in order to do that, we have to ask ourselves this crucial question. Do we want to spend the rest of our lives making the technological equivalent of sugar water? Or do y'all want to come with me? Do we all want to lead the charge? Change the law, change the world. Thank you.
Wow, okay, that was great. David Curl, you're up next. Yes, that's you. So David Curl from Thomson Reuters is going to speak about the legal innovation ecosystem, more Bowie than Woodstock. So David is Director of Market Intelligence for Thomson Reuters Legal. He supports the legal business with research and thought leadership about the competitive environment in the legal industry and how that's impacting legal service delivery. His favorite lawyer, and I didn't know this guy was a lawyer, is Howard Cosell. He is the world's only, and I gotta tell you, I love that bold statement, Swedish-speaking expert on baseball and the law.
Show me that.
Exactly, okay. And then I learned in the casual chit-chat beforehand that he has just nailed the septuagenarian concert trifecta, having just seen the Rolling Stones, Bruce Springsteen, and Paul McCartney this past year.
And somebody else too, I forget. Anyway, I'm going to use my 5 minutes to talk about what I think is a big shift that's happened in the legal tech, legal innovation environment over the past few years. Was anybody here at Reinvent Law in New York a couple of years ago, 2014? It was a big deal, right? I mean, it was a very exciting event. Really, the biggest to that date event focused on sort of the new areas of legal tech, legal startups, legal innovation. It was held at Cooper Union, a really cool place. Abraham Lincoln had spoken there. Everybody was there, and all the legal startups of the day, the heads of law firms were there, technologists, academics. It was hot, it was high energy, it was a lot of fun. And it's the kind of thing where the result was people started talking about, well, we're going to change the world, we're going to have a revolution here, and it started right here. And everybody's going to say that they were here when it started. And it reminded me of Woodstock. This sort of religious fervor. We're all coming together to do this great thing, and we're gonna take on the man, we're gonna take on the establishment, we're gonna tear down the existing legal system and replace it with something new and fantastic and shiny. And so I got caught up in this thinking about legal tech as a sort of Woodstock type phenomenon. Woodstock was a lot of fun, that era. There were lots of great bands. Here's the Jefferson Airplane, there's Janis Joplin, you had Joe Cocker. A lot of people in the room don't know who these people are either. They're on the same tour. You had random hippies in the crowd, you know, it was great. And then the whole decade really was colorful and bright and shiny and psychedelic. And you had tricked out Volkswagen vans, and it felt like that. That's what legal tech felt like for a while. It was a lot of fun, we're going to change the world. And then there was this revolutionary side to the thing, and it started to turn into a little bit of conflict, right? In the 60s, the Vietnam became an issue, lots of college demonstrations, a lot of revolutionary heroes became icons, and there was more conflict, police and hippies and cops and soldiers coming after each other. And next thing you know, you're at Kent State and you got National Guardsmen shooting 4 students. And I thought, well, that's kind of a downer. That's not where I want my legal industry to go. Let's maybe change the paradigm a little bit. And I've been noodling on that, and so I started thinking that, well, maybe that whole Woodstock thing isn't the right metaphor. And I started thinking about, well, what do we actually have today? Now it's 2016, a little more than two years later, and look at all these other communities that have grown up out of this legal tech community. We have this one, Evolve Law, we're very grateful to be here. Codex up at Stanford has been a huge force in this thing. You've got academic organizations like Legal R&D at Michigan State. You've got organizations focused on tech, artificial intelligence. The Legal Hackers has chapters all over the world. There's this sense of all these people coming together, and there's a diversity here that's starting to grow. It's not just a core group of the believers going after this stuff. It's people actually rolling up their sleeves and getting stuff done in different niches. And then right around the time I was thinking about all this, David Bowie dies. And my Facebook feed gets filled up with all these folks talking about how much they love David Bowie. Even people who you look at him, you think that can't possibly be a David Bowie fan. They love David Bowie, and they loved it because he was individual, and he changed, and he morphed, and he took in influences from all over the world. He was this guy. He was this guy. He was that guy. He was this guy. He kept reinventing himself all the time, and he kept not telling the world how it should be, but he was just taking in influences and telling the world how he was, and how he was from time to time. So if you think back to what this means about our industry today, I think we're a little more Bowie-like. We're more willing to cross borders between genres. We're more willing to take influences, as Dan said, from designers, from marketers, from technologists, from all kinds of people who have a stake in this industry. And we're crossing all those borders and breaking down those barriers. So I think that in the end, there is a little bit of rebel. There's a lot of changes, but there's golden years ahead. Thanks.
All right, thank you. And Mary, Jules, did you want questions time or just keep on cruising through? All right, we'll keep on rolling. All right, so our next speaker is Ava Hibnick. I didn't get a chance to meet you beforehand. She's going to speak about the future law firm. And as someone that's sitting inside a big law asking the question every day, can it change? Really excited to hear what your vision is. She is the co-founder of 1-400, a law innovation agency. Her favorite lawyer is Peter Thiel. He founded PayPal, was first investor in Facebook. I was approached, declined it. Yeah, no. I wish I'd been the first Facebook investor. So a surprising fact, in high school she wanted to be on the Food Network when she grew up. But she was a bit of a slacker, so she went to Harvard Law instead and started her career at Cravath, Swaine & Moore.
Again, my name's Eva. I'm co-founder of 1-400. We're a digital agency that helps law firms with branding and client acquisition. So I'm here, and then Adam in the back with the 1-400 t-shirt is there as well. So if you have any questions, come approach us. So today I'm going to talk about the law firm of the future. So what does the future hold for law firms? I did some research and put together some slides based on my perception of the future. So the theories are endless. I encourage you to think about where your firm's going to be in 10, 20, 30 years. So let's talk about the legal industry. And right now there's about 1 million lawyers. In 2030 there's going to be half. We see that law school admissions is going down. It's harder for graduates to get jobs. And technology is taking over portions of lawyers' the jobs as well. So there's some slides missing. Okay. Well, anyway, so again, as well with the lawyer, their career is going to morph a little bit. The roles are going to morph. So in law school, there's been a trend towards 2 years instead of 3 years. The first year is going to stay the same. You're going to have the legal curriculum. The second year, you're going to have a track where you can go into mediation, business consulting, and specialists. Specialists meaning like IP. We're always going to meet specialists. Mediation and arbitration are going to go up. It's going to become the norm. And litigation and class actions are going to decrease. So in the future, when let's say Bob and Sally have a legal issue, they're going to hire a mediator, and you're going to be able to talk to the mediator via video conferencing. Big law is always going to exist. I know there's a lot of articles about how there's like the death of big law, no longer big law firms, but they're going to exist, it's just going to become a little bit smaller. So there's always going to be these 5 to 10 specialized law firms. The rest is going to be very fragmented. There's still going to be a lot of solo practitioners, but they're going to offer primarily DIY services. So we see that now knowledge is very available to consumers. They're coming to initial consultations knowing a lot. They can Google, they can download contracts. They're very much more aware of the legal landscape, but they're still going to need to consult someone. So whether it's gone the business consulting route or mediation or even in the specialty. The office. Everyone's going to be working remotely. Flex time, remote, like people are very into that now. You see there is a trend, it's already starting with big law firms. They're actually moving their non-attorney staff to the Midwest, decreasing overhead. Next it's going to be associates, first years, second years. Then it's going to be partners. Partners are going to sit in their house. They're going to have a hologram behind them with a corporate setting. Everything will be done by video conferencing. So with that, the problem becomes how do you track employee productivity? So I don't know if any of you have already used Upwork or Elance, but basically you can hire freelancers. Those platforms actually allow you to see the screen of the freelancer that you hire. So let's say you pay for 5 hours of whatever you're hiring them for, you can actually see their screen and see when they clock in hours and clock out. So because all the attorneys are going to be moving remotely, there has to be a way to track them. So there's going to be software, and it already exists, that's going to track, what they're working on. Let's say they're getting tired, maybe it pops up a little game of Tetris to kind of get their mind sort of working, go back to work. So we're just definitely going to need to track the employee productivity more. New hires, I think a couple people mentioned this, but data and analytics, there's going to be a lot more hires with that. CRO, Chief Revenue Officer, R&D, community managers. Now that all the employees are scattered, there has to be a way to keep employees satisfied. And customer satisfaction, this is a big thing in the legal industry that I think needs more attention. Making sure that clients are satisfied with your services, sending feedback forms, and really constantly improving that. And sales. You already see some big law firms, they're actually hiring non-attorneys to start the sales open, and then the partners close. Then I want to talk a little bit about some new legal issues that are going to be arising. So with cloning, obviously there's going to be huge patent issues. Who owns the clones? Intelligent advertising, huge privacy issues. Technology in sports, what gives an unfair advantage, what's allowed. Even with wearables collect a lot of data. So who owns that data? What data can you use? Is it internal, public? Space tourism, jurisdiction is going to be big. What's the jurisdiction on the shuttle? What's the jurisdiction when you get to Mars or wherever you're going? Personal injury, what if someone punches someone else on the shuttle or on the new planet? Robots. All right, so this is a big one too. So product liability issues. The robots create, products. Who's going to be responsible? Is it the robot? Is it the manufacturer? Robots with criminal law. Are they responsible? Is it their owner that's going to be responsible? So I encourage you to think about all these things as you grow your law firm and really pay attention and grow it so you're around and able to keep up with all this stuff in the next 10, 20, 30 years.
Okay, that was fabulous, and that was Eva, not Ava, and I am so sorry as someone whose name gets mispronounced all the time. All right, so our next speaker is Mary, which is fantastic. So she's going to speak on measure and be measured or perish, the need for new metrics in the law. So Mary is a recovering accountant and sidestepped a legal career. She's one of the more enlightened among us. She founded the software company Trackway and is one of the co-conspirators on founding Evolve Law, which we're very thankful for, along with Jules here. She's now writing a book for Thomson Reuters on KPIs for small law. Her favorite lawyer, John Grisham, and her favorite job ever was lifeguarding. And she said it was because it was so peaceful, which I think is about the best thing you can hope for in a lifeguarding job. But I'm so glad you're here. In case anyone starts to drown, raise your hand, and she's in shape.
Just a disclaimer, all my certifications have all lapsed, so please no one drown. Okay, so for once I found something that uses all of my background. I have accounting, I have a law degree, I was a director of finance in Big Law Canada, and 22 years ago, KPIs, or key performance indicators, were big in education, and it was thought of as revolutionary. And now, as Lawton explained, I'm writing a book for Thomson Reuters. It's focused on small law, but really key performance indicators apply to all law. Because, here's a shocker, law firms are just businesses. Solos are just entrepreneurs. Law firms are big businesses. As Eva mentioned, you see chief information officers at law firms, you see CEOs at law firms. So it all boils down to, from my accounting roots, cash is king. We can talk all day long about everything, but the basic idea is if your firm expenses, which include your payroll and everything, plus your overhead, exceeds the money you get in the door, not what you bill, but the money you get in the door, your firm's going to fail. So, one note before we get into this. There's been a lot of talk about, yay, beyond the billable hour. Some of these quotes, if we have flat fees, we don't have to record our hours anymore. Yay, it's a complete fallacy. So law is just like any other professional service. You have to record the effort. You might not bill that way, but you sure can't figure out how much something costs unless you know the effort that goes into it. So, these are all quotes from people that I've talked to as I've been trying to sell Tracklight into the legal profession for 3 years now. So people are talking about, I'm the only person here, I'm a solo, I don't need technology. I think it's the other way around. But I'm going to get back to KPIs. So our traditional KPIs, think utilization, they all focus on supply. Sort of build it and they will come. So what we need to do is turn this around and focus on what's the most important thing, which is your client. Access to justice, delivering value for your clients. So again, this has been mentioned a little bit, but let's start with a different way of looking at KPIs, which start with the client. So the first one is client satisfaction, which we had a great presentation by Avo's chief product officer on this, Net Promoter Score. This is something that many of you have seen, where it's how likely are you to refer, fill in the blank, this software, this firm, to somebody. So you might think, well, that's just for like a solo or a small firm. No big firm's ever going to do that. Well, McCarthy Tétrault in Canada, which is one of Canada's largest law firms, just launched their Net Promoter Score a week and a half ago. And they're going out to tranches of their clients and they're asking them for feedback. And they ask them how likely on a scale of 1 to 10. And if you're interested in this, there's actually a little blog in the Thomson Reuters, I'll get this wrong, Legal Education Institute, LEI, today from our Seattle event where we talk about Net Promoter Score. So, strange things are happening with the slides. It is development. So the other thing that McCarthy Tétrault does is they have a firm-wide pipeline and they measure how that converts. So if they're putting a lot of effort into their potential clients, how does that convert over? So moving along, we're still talking about clients because you should measure what's going on in your firm because that reflects directly on the service that your clients are going to get. And a lot of these measures come from demands made by clients. Because if your client's Facebook or your client's Snapchat or something like that, they are going to want you to be able to tell them about the metrics for your firm. You've got organizations like Clock, where they're setting up all kinds of measurements for the in-house counsel. So pipeline development, cost of customer acquisition. This is another area where if you talk to a big law firm and ask them, hey, how much did it cost you to acquire this new client? They don't have a way of measuring that. Well, if you don't know if you spend more acquiring a client than the revenue you're going to get from them, it's not a good business model, for sure. So now we're at measure number 5, which now we're getting into productivity, but we don't want to talk about utilization. We want to measure how many days from the day you did the work until you collect the cash. And then with profitability, it's not profits per partner, it's contribution margin per matter. How much cash did you collect minus how much money went out? That's what you should be measuring. And finally, you need to look at the collections by timekeeper. You still need to measure this individual performance, but you can figure out where you're going wrong. So how to get started with this? Doesn't have to be fancy. Come up with some sort of KPI dashboard. There's lots of cool software out there, but you can also do something simple on Excel, start with 7 measurements and go from there. You need to look at your system, you need to look at your data, and you need to set some targets. And then, as we like to say at Above Law, you need to actually take some action. So just freaking do it, because I know this is being recorded. So just freaking do it, because I gotta ask you, are you going to measure the right things?
It's Adam Long is next, so thank you, Mary. So Adam Long is from Predicate, and he's going to speak on what AI and the law means for you, how to succeed by teaming up with Android legal minds. I'm getting to that. He's very proud. So he's an attorney and an entrepreneur in Los Angeles, over 10 years experience in developing, managing, and marketing legal technology products. His favorite lawyer is David Dudley Field. Anyone in the room know who that is? Right. I'm going to read it. Apparently, he is the leader of the movement in the 19th century to codify American law, and the person who has done more than any individual before or since to improve and systematize the U.S. legal system. So, now Adam is our competitive smiler. And we're going to see you demonstrate your skills. Okay, but anyway, apparently as a child, Adam won the Smile Contest on TV. Like, this was a big deal. On the Ramblin' Rod television show. Anybody here watch the Ramblin' Rod television show? Only in Portland, all right. He won a bottle of root beer, and he has kept that trophy all his life. Okay, so give us your smile. Yeah, it's pretty good. I'll give you a Coke, or a Sprite. I'll bring you a Sprite. Good.
Super excited to be with everybody tonight. My topic is artificial intelligence and the law. I just started a blog called sharkstreet.com. I hope you'll all take a look at it. Now, artificial intelligence and the law is a subject that is engendering a lot of really goofy, dumb debate. And this is my first slide. Now, Vanessa dared me to do the voice, so I need everybody to kind of support me on this. Artificial intelligence, ha! A humbug, sir! I say a humbug! Did you get that? Get that on the record? You can clap, you can laugh, you can, whatever. Okay, so there is this Luddite view in the legal system. We don't need this machine learning, all this stuff is BS. Now, of course, the other side of the debate is buzzword bingo. And somebody talking about how this is going to transform everything, it's going to disrupt everything, and in 30 years you're going to see this, you're going to see that, etc. I don't want to talk about what's going to happen in 30 years. I want to talk about what's happening right now. Because artificial intelligence, it doesn't always get called that, but artificial intelligence is getting used in the legal system right now, and there's some important lessons that we can learn for how AI is going to affect all of the legal system. And where you're seeing it, and what I want to talk about is document review. And what's happening, boy, this was a much better slide when it was on my computer screen, but what's happening is the amount, everybody here knows this, the amount of documents is getting huge. I mean, 10 years ago, somebody would print out 200 emails. That was a lot of emails. Now, a very typical case can have 3 million emails. It's getting completely out of the question for human beings to review all of these emails. And even when they do a crappy job. So this comes under the name technology-assisted review, predictive coding. And I came up with an algorithm because there's 7 factors to think about. I want to talk about it when it has to do with predictive coding. It's going to apply across the board in the legal system. I'm going to step through each one of these. The first is that this is algorithmic. Amazing. You can't, if you've looked at any blog ever, or any Facebook feed ever, you see the stories about the progress in algorithms. That we're driving, the computers are driving cars. Computers are doing things like figuring out what web page out of billions and billions of web pages you might want to look at. Amazing progress. That's going to hit the legal world. And a particular aspect of it is natural language processing. We're not talking about keywords anymore. We're talking about doing machine translation. We're talking about being able to look at emails and look for concepts and understand which email is talking about Dave and which is talking about the chair of the department. And really, the computers are getting amazing at processing natural language and understanding concepts. So, a couple of things about what this means relative to human lawyers. These computers are incredibly diligent. They can get through 4 million documents without falling asleep, without having to go on vacation, without having to go to the bathroom. At the same time, they're very reliable. So in fact, in a lot of these head-to-head comparisons, Frank, you and I were talking earlier about the document review going on right now. A lot of these head-to-head comparisons, the computers are doing much better. They're finding more relevant documents, and they're identifying fewer irrelevant documents. Crucial part of this, the algorithms are learning by observation. This is not a scenario where you type in all the criteria to figure out what documents are relevant. What they do is have expert lawyers go through, review the documents, see what's relevant and what isn't. The computers are extracting that by observing what the lawyers do. They're also starting to do something which is pretty important. Now, the people advocating for this don't emphasize this because they get a lot of pushback, but they're doing what amounts to independent legal judgment. They're making a judgment call, not supervised by human attorneys, about whether a document is relevant or not. That is a legal judgment. We're going to be seeing more of that, more algorithms doing what amounts to making independent judgments on legal questions. And then finally, they can make fine distinctions. As we all know, a lot of the things in the law are not black and white issues. It's not just whether a document's relevant or not. What these algorithms are able to do is rank in order what documents are most relevant. Now, I'm talking about e-discovery, but this is going to apply across the board about things like compliance, doing legal research, etc. And by embracing, I want credit for this. This is my acronym that I came up with one night. These are a lot of, what I'm trying to do is get you to think about how this could apply across the board in a lot of areas where algorithmic legal minds are going to be partnering with human beings. Everybody memorize that? You getting that? Get that on the screen? I'm sorry, I'm just playing around with it. So, I hope you'll take a look. I just launched this blog. I'm not selling anything. I'm not pitching anything. I just want to have a conversation with people about this. So please take a look at sharkstreet.com and share with me your thoughts.
Okay, that was fabulous. He came in at 5 minutes, 1 second, and 18 tenths. That was really good. He actually does get the #1 award, so nicely done. All right, Jules Miller is next. She is founder of Hire and Esquire, as well as Evolve Law. Her talk is on following the Pied Piper or chasing the unicorns, hiring lessons from Silicon Valley. Jules, as I mentioned, co-founded Hire and Esquire, which is an on-demand marketplace for attorneys and the future of the legal career. She also co-founded Evolve Law, which we all know what that is now. And her favorite lawyer is Gandhi. And this is really cool. Before leaving her job to do Hire and Esquire, she spent 2 weeks living in a Zen monastery with lots of meditation and no speaking. Was it really no speaking for 2 weeks straight?
Yes, it was. Except for in the kitchen, you could be like, knife, and then other than that.
Wow. Wow. Okay. And somehow that Zen experience took her to becoming a legal tech innovator. Wow. That's not stressful.
No, try to keep Zen every day, but it's not easy. So welcome, thank you. Hopefully none of my slides go wrong. Sorry everyone who had that in the past. I'm Jules, as Lawton said, co-founder of Hiring Esquire. We're a legal labor marketplace, and we help law firms hire attorneys on a flexible and permanent basis. So I wanted to share some lessons learned on hiring, and especially applying Silicon Valley approaches to hiring that law firms can learn from. So specifically, how is Big Law compensating attorneys and hiring attorneys? And how will they in the future? So we'll talk about now and the future. And this isn't necessarily using Pied Piper from the HBO sitcom, but I thought it was funny because law firms, maybe look a little bit like this at the top level. So we're just gonna move on. So we're talking about this Pied Piper, the one from Germany back in the day, where he came to town and he played his magical flute and lured all the rats out of town. So this is kind of a good analogy for Big Law hiring compensation strategy. And I think the funniest example is around associate bonuses. So this is kind of how it seems to work, is Cravath announces bonuses. And then a couple other firms follow suit. And these are actually real examples from last year and the year before. So then another firm says, we're doing more than Cravath for some of our attorneys, but not all of our attorneys. And then someone else drops the ball entirely, doesn't match the scale that Cravath set. Attorneys get pissed and then they leave or complain a lot, one of the two. And then someone else says, okay, we're going to match, but only in New York and not in other areas. And then the other area attorneys get pissed and then they complain and then they come back and say, okay, we're going to match everywhere. And of course, this is all based on hours. It's not based on efficiency. It's not based on quality. It's not based on client satisfaction. So I like to call this the shut up and take my money approach to compensation. And similar tactics apply to hiring. So you get the perfect formula for hiring at Big Law. For new associates, it's what school did you go to? How did you rank in that school? What was your GPA? And that basically predicts your success of getting a job. And then for experienced associates, it gets really complicated and they add in the other layer of what prior firm did you work at and what was the ranking? And then for partners, it changes altogether, which is then how many clients can you bring over? So I think this is a crazy way to hire. This is obviously simplifying it, but there's more to it to that. And the craziest thing is that it's actually not working. Associate attorney is the unhappiest job in America, consistently voted, which is pretty sad. And then actually 77% of associates leave Big Law by year 5. And I can go into this in much more detail, but I won't, but it obviously has a negative impact on diversity. So what's going on? Something needs to change. Attorneys want more. There are study after study saying that attorneys will sacrifice salary for things like leadership opportunities and flexibility and meritocracy and using interesting tools. And so I think we can learn a lot from the tech unicorns. So the tech unicorns are rewriting the way hiring and compensating and promoting people is done. So we want to learn a little bit about them. And if you have been under a rock somewhere, the tech unicorns are generally private companies that are venture-backed that are valued at over $1 billion. I think there's like 150 now. But just in general, also kind of applies to like the Googles and the Salesforces who used to be unicorns but are now public companies, and also a lot of the legal tech companies in this room that I like to think will be future unicorns. So the way we operate as tech companies are different, and it's not necessarily because we're different as organizations. Law firms and tech companies tend to be very similar. They're highly competitive environments. People work really, really hard, and the stakes are high. The difference is that there's meaning in a tech company. Tech companies tend to find ways to make it worth the while, make the long hours worth it, with an emphasis on cultural fit, meritocracy, transparency, and flexibility. And there's a ton of examples that won't go into detail, but there's benefits and perks that are really innovative that tech companies appreciate life outside work. And then also life inside work. So how many times have you heard an associate say, I've never felt more valued by any other company, or they really want me to grow as a person? Does that happen in law firms? I hope it does, but it's pretty rare. So what tech companies have discovered is that it all comes down to culture. And this is something that law firms have not necessarily spent a ton of time defining. There's a lot of talk about like excellence and collaborativeness and kind of generic terms, but defining what a law firm's, especially big law firms, specific cultures that is unique to them is something that they need to do a little bit more of. So I'm optimistic that this is an innovation that will happen, and it's not a major innovation, but I think this is something that is starting to happen a little bit, and there's been glimmers of hope. Some progress. So there are a few law firms that are starting to offer things like work from home policies, radical, right? Yoga classes, meditation, Kirkland just announced meditation classes, telecommuting, there's like dance-offs and karaoke and team bonding. So there's a little bit of stuff happening, but the thing that's missing is that it's not tied or aligned with a specific culture. So the thing that I think will happen is that law firms will actually figure out what their culture is and start aligning their benefits package with that, so that it actually is a differentiating factor and it makes people happier, more productive, and stay longer at their jobs. So Tony Hsieh, CEO of Zappos, which was sold to Amazon for $1 billion, so unicorn in his own right, says if you get the culture stuff right, the rest will come. The rest will take care of itself. So smart words. So my final prediction is that big law will follow the unicorns and start prioritizing culture in their hiring and compensation strategies. Thank you.
Thank you, Jules. Okay, Mark, you're next. Mark Laster from Lex Projects. His talk is on the end of big law firms. Thankfully, you put a question mark there. So Mark is a lawyer, a legal technologist, and a legal project manager, and an ADR resolutionary. He works very hard to try to create efficient systems to resolve disputes. And he has a table over there with his technology startup. His favorite lawyer is Richard Susskind, the author of Tomorrow's Lawyers and a really prolific writer on very novel thinking about the future of the law profession. It's a lot of fun to read his work. When Mark graduated from UCLA, he wanted to become a Green Beret, but he decided instead to go to law school. So he's our Green Beret wannabe. But seriously, last month I found out in our little chat beforehand, this is a big deal. He was inducted as a fellow in the College of Commercial Arbitrators. For those of you in the legal profession, that is about one of the most sort of esteemed accolades you can get. It's really terrific. So he's a wonderful dispute resolver. If you ever have a very significant commercial problem, call Mark. But Mark, tell us now about the future of law firms.
Thanks a lot. So today we're talking about innovation in the law. And here is a single phrase that you can always recognize runs against the grade of innovation. It's the saying, well, we've always done it that way before. So I want to ask you a question. If you practice with a law firm, why do you practice with a law firm and not someplace or some way different? And if you answered that truthfully, I think what you'd say is, well, it's the way we've always done it. So why do we have big law firms anyway? Let's do a function analysis. We have law firms for 4 reasons and 4 reasons only. We need administration and support because lawyers don't like to make photocopies. When I started law 33 years ago practicing, we had to go to a geospatial location in a Class A office building just to have the means of production. The fax machines, the photocopiers, the printers, the phone systems, etc. We needed the form file, knowledge management, mentoring, and collegiality. And most important, until we had our own book of business, we needed somebody to give us work, right? So you take all of those things combined and you have what's then called the brand, which is the firm name. That's what a law firm does for lawyers. But if you look at it now from a function analysis, 3 of the 4 things that law firms need are all now provided in the cloud at a fraction of the cost. So why then do we have law firms? It's the got work thing. That's really where it's going right now. So law firms express themselves in shapes. The end of the 20th century was marked by the so-called 20th century pyramid model, which was based on lawyer leverage of downstream labor by the billable hour, and that added up to the pyramid model, which has huge overhead footprints, averaging $15,000 to $18,000 per month per lawyer. But it's now morphed in since the 1990s, the pyramid model. Notice, LegalZoom, legal process outsourcing companies, and in-house counsel has eroded the base of the triangle from associates, which are now pretty much missing from the picture. So, what's the next shape for big law? Well, I want to suggest it might be a sinking ship unless they get their act together and make some changes. So, What is it that lawyers individually do? Let's do a function analysis on individual lawyers. Well, again, we only do 4 things. We do advocacy in the boardroom or in the courtroom. We do counseling and advice to clients for that quick question. We do processes like due diligence in M&A transactions or e-discovery and litigation matters. And then finally, we do content, which typically expresses as the written deliverables. It could be a demand letter, a contract, an agreement, a motion, etc. Now, here's the interesting thing since the Great Recession started in 2008. It used to be that one law firm would be your one-stop shop to bundle all of these things together. And the law firm was going to deliver all 4 of these. But now, since the Great Recession, processes and content, think LegalZoom, Vanessa, have now moved away and are becoming unbundled from the practice of law. And this is having cataclysmic changes in our profession because it's causing lawyers to have a conflict between maximizing profits for their firm and delivering value, which is better, faster, cheaper for their clients. And this is a real dilemma, and it's creating huge tensions right now within our profession because we're locked into the way that we do law. What if you could do law different? What if something looked different than a law firm? What might alternative legal services delivery be like? Well, what we're seeing now in the literature emerging is the notion of temporary legal teams. Think Zero Dark 30, special forces teams that have people from the CIA, from the Navy SEALs, etc., combined in temporary legal teams like you see in a lot of movies, okay? Where you put together a group of mercenaries or crooks, you're going to rip off a bank or a casino, or you're going to go rescue somebody's daughter in South Africa, and when it's all over, we brush it off, divvy up the money, and go back to the bar until we get a new gig, okay? So, what does that look like for law firms in the way that we deliver legal services? Well, imagine lawyers as a bunch of freelance mercenaries. Some would say we're already doing that, right? But picture it now that we're based in the cloud instead of in a geospatial location like a Class A office building with its attendant overhead. And we collaborate based upon technologies and platforms similar to what we do every day with LinkedIn or Facebook or something like that. And what you can do then is assemble temporary legal teams, not based upon the firm or the organization, but based upon the mission. We become mission-driven in the way that we deliver legal services, which could be anything from an M&A transaction, a commercial real estate transaction, a commercial litigation matter, or any other legal matter you can think of that requires collaboration. But what about administration and support functions? But now that they're cloud-based, you can have all of your administration and support functions provided on a temporary basis, and you can turn them on and off like a garden hose, and thus bring down your fixed overhead costs. You can ratchet those down to a fraction of what they are without compromising quality. All of this, however, requires a command and control basis of people that are running legal project and process management, that are managing the key performance indicators, that are tracking and monitoring things to make sure they're delivered on time and on budget. And so the command and control legal project management element supervises not only the activities of the teams, but of each of the individual team members within that, and then coordinates them not only with each other, but also with the administrative and support functions and with the outside legal vendors. I believe that this notion of temporary legal teams, which could happen either inside of a law firm or outside of a law firm, will revolutionize legal services because it allows an alternative delivery method where you can drop costs and cherry pick the best and the brightest for your temporary teams and therefore maximize service to the clients. So thank you for letting me present that to you, and let's talk more later on. Thank you.
Wow. Okay, I'm exhausted and inspired and ready to start a law firm with you. That was great. All right, so our next person is Jason Richmond. His company is Live Deposition, and his talk is on disrupting the traditional deposition, and I peeked at his slides, and this is going to be a lot of fun. So Jason is a lifelong tech enthusiast with a passion for the legal industry. He does a lot of outside-the-box problem solving. He's on a mission to redefine legal tech. His favorite lawyer is James Barata. And Jason, you're going to have to help me out with him. I searched every kind of name of James. Okay. Okay, so this is James Barata of Grant, Genovese, and Barata in Orange County. who practices with his son Jimmy. All right, I found him. I searched for every kind of famous James Brown, and that's the only one I could come up with. So we've now made him famous. That's awesome. Okay, well this is great. Okay, so now really we need to bow down. Jason is our hand model. Show us your famous runway moves. Okay, I have to check this out.
You guys were making fun of me on the phone.
Are they soft? Are they
You know what it really is all about?
well proportioned, the curves? All right, okay. I've never met a hand model. Has anybody else? I'm like kind of like, overwhelmed. So, good to meet you. We're looking forward to the talk.
Thank you very much. You know what? I probably don't even need this. I'm loud enough as it is.
I think you should.
You need it for this? Okay. I'm going to be talking about how technology has disrupted the legal industry. And my background for the last 15 years has been in technology. For the last 7 has been with live deposition. And over that time frame, I've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of attorneys and a lot of these other partners in the legal community. And I will tell you, I've learned a ton. And part of the discussions that have taken place earlier today, attorneys are way behind the times. But the good thing is they are starting to open their eyes. They are starting to look for technologies that not only will make them more productive, but will allow them to lower the costs to their customers. So let's kind of talk about where we've come from. The traditional deposition, it truly has been for decades. Show up to the location, stuffy conference rooms, and have to print up hundreds of copies of documents, which then have to be shredded because you never want anyone to have evidence of these information. And I know that 7 years ago when I started in technology with this division, that was one of the big hurdles we had, is how do we disrupt this industry and make them understand that it is crazy to spend the money to throw away the productivity and to just cut down tree after tree after tree when it's not necessary. Fortunate enough, there has been a shift in the way attorneys litigate, not only for depositions, for arbitrations, really all legal events. And this is really due to the rapid innovation in the legal tech marketplace, the widespread usage of technology. Everyone has a cell phone, and we all kind of joke about how 10, 15 years ago people would say, well, what do I need a cell phone for? I have an office phone. I have a home number. I don't need anything in between. Those days, luckily, are gone. People understand you always need to be connected, and if there's anything that can make you more productive, show it to me. And then also, the flexibility demand requested from these actual attorneys. They're starting to ask, how can you increase my productivity? How can you cut my costs? This has resulted in, and I love this line, a shift in the way attorneys participate in depositions and other legal events, disrupting what was once standard. So we're getting there. Now we're at a point where you don't need to travel. No longer do you need to spend all that money, all that hassle. Who wants to get on a plane? Who wants to be stuck in traffic when it's not a necessity? Remote participation. We're all connected between Facebook, Twitter, and all the other solutions. We all have these devices in front of us. It's much better and it's much easier to be able to use those devices beyond just being able to check your email. And then obviously, the influx of these paperless solutions that have come on board, the ability to use not only your Mac, your PC, but the Android, the Apple, and the Kindle Fire devices, which now everyone in this room I can see has one, and most of you probably have more than one. Where does that bring us today? Well, that brings us to the video conferencing. One-way and multi-way video. So now not only can you see what's going on during an event, you can actually participate remotely. Other features that are in there are the ability to do private chat and non-discoverable private chat. So now you're not passing a note across the table, but you're able to literally discuss on a one-on-one, private, non-discoverable manner ideas, concepts, directions you want to go with co-counsel that could be across the table or across the globe. Real-time streaming. Most people know about this. I still get shocked how many attorneys don't know. But rather than having to wait to get that transcript an hour, a week, a month later, you can actually get that on your mobile device or on your desktop in real time. And not only do you get that on that device, you can now actually be more productive by getting work product done. The ability to highlight parts of the transcript,
keyword search parts of the transcript so that you're always in touch with what's most important to you, and rather than having to review and use yellow highlighters like we all did 20 years ago, you can get that information and have that information at your fingertips at any moment. And then the newest technology really that's come out in the last few years are the electronic exhibits. Now we can go paperless. No longer need to make 100 copies and shred all of those. No longer need to drag in those banker boxes. I hear stories from attorneys who sit there and say, I've got an event going on, whether it's a deposition or an arbitration, and I've got someone else who their sole job is to wheel in box load of documents. That's ridiculous. To pay someone hundreds of dollars in wasted time and then to have to take that money and pass it on to the end user. Really, no need for that. With these technologies, you also have the ability to not only introduce and share these documents with people remotely, you have the ability to mark them up remotely. The ability to have the court reporter actually stamp those documents and submit them for the record, and have everyone have the ability to get those documents in real time. This has lent itself to the ability, as we discussed earlier, to participate from anywhere at any time. So now these attorneys can work from their home office. Hopefully we all can get to a situation like this individual right here where this may be a billable event on the annual, but at least he doesn't have to worry about I need to be in the office or I need to be in this stuffy conference room in order to get this event accomplished. Also, the influx of everyone becoming comfortable with mobile devices. Now it's not just your desktop machine, but now it's that device that you have connected to your hip or in your pocket, readily available at all times. And luckily, Android, Apple, and even Amazon Kindle has made it affordable, no matter what you're looking for, to have these inexpensive, powerful computers right next to you. What are some of the benefits? Well, first and foremost, this one right here. Once again, there's no need to travel 10 hours to take a 5-hour deposition, to spend $3,000 to fly in an expert when you need an hour of his testimony, but you still have to pay him for 8 hours because he's out of the office for the entire day. And when we talk to customers, when we talk to the associates, we let them know, wouldn't it be nice that you can take that legal event from anywhere and then go home and kiss your kids goodnight? And for the partners, we say, isn't it wonderful that not only can you take your clients out to dinner and entertain them, but you can actually be engaged in the depositions or the legal events that you may have an associate in your law firm handling for you. This all lends itself to the increased productivity, which everyone likes to see, a boost of profits in the bottom line. This is something that often gets overlooked, but is really important. Okay, anything we can do to not have to chop down more trees, to not have to put more carbon in the skies is a win for everyone. And then obviously going completely paperless, which when we talked about earlier in these discussions, how it's millions and millions and millions of documents, is something that's a benefit for everyone. So what does the future look like? Well, for me, I think that the future is very optimistic. I think that attorneys will be able to get more done in less time, and we know they're all being asked to handle more cases, and their clients are always asked to pay less. I'm hoping that that'll trickle down to where insurance companies, medium-sized, small, and even the individual have to pay less for legal services. And most importantly, where travel plans are based on places to visit, restaurants to eat at, people to see, and not being stuck in a conference room with people that you seriously consider your adversaries for hours on end. That's it.
Thank you, Jason. All right, Emil Stefanuti. There we go. He is the co-founder and CEO of Contract Room, and his talk tonight is on design thinking and entrepreneurship. He's passionate about improving the way people agree and how business gets done. He directs product and business vision at Contract Room. He co-founded magazines, publications, and America Riches. He's held executive positions at the NBA and Batanga Networks. His first profitable startup was at age 14, and you have to tell us what that was when you get up here. He's vice chairman of Miami Music Project and a board member of endpoverty.org. So he actually is doing all that good pro bono service that we all should do more of. He earned his degree in design from the, here I go, Istituto Europeo di Design in Milano. Pretty good? Close? Okay. His favorite lawyer is Parker Thompson, and I tried to figure out who that was. You're going to have to tell us who that is. And his unusual fact is that he actually described this as, I had to. I changed it to, he spent a year as a Red Cross paramedic in Lake Como, Italy. All right, Emil, thank you.
So about Parker Thompson, I think the reason why I chose him is 85-year-old Princeton, Harvard law guy that can talk about machine learning that you wouldn't believe. So I think he's a rock star in my book. So thank you, Emil, Stefanuti, Contract Room. Super excited to share, how design thinking has influenced the work we're doing in Contract Room and in my personal life. From my first job designing logos to the last 5 years redesigning how people agree and make decisions, which at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how you sign, how you store, how you negotiate. If you don't agree, it doesn't matter. So interestingly about design thinking is the natural kind of association with design thinking is always about cool products, right, and brands and like fancy things. And yes, it's obvious that they're beautifully designed. And it's a lot harder to find good examples of design thinking in the legal business, right? Now, the important thing to keep in mind is that design thinking is not about colors or shapes or textures. It is actually about the way we approach problems, come up with solutions, and even more importantly, about the impact that those solutions are supposed to have on other people's lives. So, quick example, when I was in design school, one of our teachers comes one day and says, okay, I have a simple briefing for you. I need you to design a product that can wash clothes. Pretty simple, right? So, a few days later, we come back with a bunch of sketches of all sorts of washing machines, bleed on top, bleed on the side, colors, materials, whatever. He looks at them and says, this sucks. This is not what I asked for. I asked you to design a product that could wash clothes. And all I can see is a bunch of washing machines. And you see, this changed my life. Because I realized that we always come to work just with our own assumption and only basing our solutions on the things we already know. So we weren't thinking about who is going to need this. Why do we need to wash clothes? Does everybody wash clothes the same way? So this is how design thinking should work. So let me ask you, how many people here have bought wall paint in the last 30 years? Pretty much everyone, right? So this is an interesting story. There's this group of young designers that started their own firm a while ago, and they were unlucky. The market crashed right after they started. They were left with no projects, no business. They had to figure out what to do. So they decided to go out and start visiting traditional stores, going, aisle by aisle, bin by bin, looking at everything as if it was the first time they seen it. They went to Home Depot, and when they stopped in front of the painting department, they had a very important realization. Paint buckets are super stupid. I mean, think about it. This is a heavy product, heavy packaging that you have to carry around using a thin wire, right? So you need a tool to open it, you need another tool to close it, none of which come with a bucket. When you use it, typically, it drips all over the place, so it's a mess. So there's plenty of problems with this, but I think the biggest problem is that we've been hurting our hands using this thing forever without questioning it, without doing anything about it, right? So, a bunch of years after, I transitioned from design into entrepreneurship and figured out I had to design my way around the things I didn't know. And one of those was, when I got introduced into contracting and negotiation. And it didn't make any sense to me. These ping pong matches of red line documents, do I have the most recent version? Did they track changes? I used to be red, now I'm blue, And this became my pain bucket. And for the last 4 years at Contract Room, we've been rethinking how people agree. Rethinking how and why certain things are done a certain way. The interesting thing is we found other people who had the same pain and trusted us and joined us, in our quest to make the world more agreeable. Now, still today, every time I'm sitting with our design team, our product team, our salespeople, I keep asking myself and them, is this a washing machine? So my challenge to you, my encouragement to you is, look at your day-to-day things. Look at your pain buckets and try to think of what are the things you're missing? What are the things that you could change? I promise you, you're going to find great answers and a chance to actually change the way things work. So finally, I think my last advice to you is stop thinking about what are the questions you haven't answered and start thinking more about what are the answers you're not questioning. Thank you.
Well, that was terrific. Thank you. All right. You got to be sick of me by now. I'm sick of me. Paul Vaquier is going to finish our program. He's the founder and CEO of Contract Cloud. And he's going to be talking about eliminating witnesses, which I think is a very great title. He's a litigation attorney, entrepreneur, and life enthusiast. His favorite lawyer is Key Rock, the unfrozen caveman lawyer from Saturday Night Live. It's fabulous. The surprising fact is he did play professional water polo. So I think he might be our most legitimate competitive athlete in the room. Although smiling and bagging are impressive, I think water polo might win the day. So.
Okay, so, oh, thank you. I got a paper with this, old school. So, I'll start just by saying there's a lot about all of our backgrounds. Some of the things that I like to now ask people that I'm hiring is, what have you done not in your career, what have you done actually in the last 90 days? And I feel like that gives much more insight into what their mentality is going into a new job and why they want to be there and what it is that they're about to, if they're going to join your team, what kind of motivation, what kind of problem solving do they bring to the table? So I'll respond. So the last 90 days, I'm recovering from sickness. We've got a lot going on with Contract Cloud right now. I have a baby daughter at home. She's 2 months old, so that's 90 days. And I went to the Cure concert last night, so my voice is toast. So now, when we look at what I'm going to talk about, so evolution of law and technology, it's really the evolving witness. This can kind of sum up a lot of the things that we've heard tonight, and then we can kind of conclude it with a take-home message from, I think, that every one of the speakers would agree with. And so the future of law does not include witnesses. So witnesses are no longer needed from an evidentiary standpoint. What's that going to mean going forward? How is that going to decrease costs? We heard that from the very beginning with Vanessa. We talked about that with the elimination of large law firms. AI we brought into it, which I'm going to touch on as well. Now, work. Am I crazy? Eliminate witnesses? Well, yeah, I'm crazy for a lot of reasons, but I think we've actually already done this. So, and we can get into how and why that is. So, we've already eliminated the need for witnesses. Now, a witness, what is it? A witness is a person who has knowledge of an event. Now, I'm not going to teach an evidence class, although to nerd out for a bit, I absolutely loved evidence in law school. But we don't need to get into all of that. But, so who is a witness, and how can this role be eliminated from the legal practice to as much as you can to save time, save money, and make the law practice better and more efficient? So who are witnesses? We've got its evolved laws, we've got Darwin, and now we're ending up with everybody staring at their phones. So witnesses over time. Now let's dive into these people a little bit, what the steps were. I don't think that we can argue varying steps, but I'm going to say there were 3 historic steps that got us to where we are now going through time. So who is a witness? Beginning witnesses weren't too important. You've got rulers and religious figures. We all probably studied Hammurabi at some point, the dude that wrote, the first guy to write down law. They weren't that important. The ruler would just say, oh, you know, it's predestined that this is the way things are, so you're guilty and on your way. No need for a witness. Then, typo, eyewitness is one word. We have the eyewitness. We all know, and if we don't, there are studies that you can Google for hours. They're fascinating on how eyewitness is inherently flawed. So, you know, you got racial biases. The really famous one, if you've ever seen The Godfather, he walks out of the bathroom with the gun, shoots the police chief and the other head of the crime family, drops the gun and walks out. There's a weapon bias in eyewitness, where if you see a gun, if you see a knife, your eye tracks toward that and you don't see me. So that's, you know, a lot of research, we won't get into it. Third step is writing, arguably technology, but this now creates the need for a document authenticator. So now you have a witness that needs to then come in, you know, handwriting experts back in the day, or maybe even further back, only one guy in the village could write, so he was the one saying, yes, this is what this document says. Now, you bring technology into those different steps and to those witnesses. So rulers and religious figures, my favorite example is from the Monty Python and the Search for the Holy Grail, where they dress up somebody as a witch and say she's a witch. The guy says, how do you know she's a witch? And the logic is inherently flawed, but they end up weighing the person against a duck. And if she weighs as much as the duck, she must be a witch. So, something to YouTube at home. Now, eyewitnesses, glasses, contact lenses, how do you improve what the eyewitness is able to do? Right? So this is where we are now, basically. I mean, you're still relying on this. I've litigated, literally, claims. One of them in particular, we spent $2.1 million on where the lady claimed she didn't have her glasses on when she signed a notarized agreement. We took that through trial, ended up getting a very favorable settlement for the client, but it was still $2.1 million later because she literally signed a release and said she didn't have her glasses on. We can have a whole year about, and I'll teach a class on why notaries, I think, are totally worthless. But anyway, step 3, writing and document authentication. Starting off with wax seals. I'm a Game of Thrones fan, you see that all the time. Watermarks, fancy paper, notaries we talked about. How do you bring technology in to authenticate these writings and help out technology? So is that really all we've done? And I mean, this is old. I mean, this is medieval. Glasses and telescopes are, you know, from God knows when. This is the kind of thing that, how have we evolved beyond this? So technology has given us a 4th step. We've heard a lot about it tonight. You all got one in your pocket, in your hand. Computers. I like this kind of old school computer. Now, what's happening? We've got video and documentary evidence being captured by electronic means. And that now creates a whole new set of documentary evidence. So, wait. Are computers witnesses? Can a computer be a witness? You still have to have, for the most part, at least right now, somebody to authenticate that this document was electronically recorded in this manner, and then it gets into the expert witness deals, and it's crazy. Same thing with video. So, yes, you still need a witness. A person that must be a witness to authenticate the electronic document process. Or, do we? We touched earlier on AI with Adam. Right now, we have automatic authentication that is currently in existence. So, merging the online and the offline worlds, right? Video. Video is capturing somebody in the real world doing something and then transcribing that into a documentary kind of manner in which now is, you know, now we take it online. So, online, you can do authentication through secure cloud, which we've talked a lot about, and I run a cloud company, and then, you know, blockchain technologies and AI. So self-authenticating material is here, as Adam touched on briefly from an AI perspective. But with the blockchain and AI technologies, computers can actually self-authenticate writings now. And at that point, you don't need a witness. So blockchain is another, I mean, good God, here it is attempted in one sentence. A decentralized, secure, consistent data storage, which is a distributed ledger comprised of unchangeable, digitally recorded data in packages called blocks. And it's basically a bunch of computers seeing a event occur in an online fashion, and then they all witness that event that event occurred, and they don't know what the event was, but they know it occurred, and they can authenticate that way. So now we have a new process because of this technology. We have an event occurs. It is now captured either offline through video or online in any sort of computer process transaction, however you deal with somebody online. If that's LegalZoom, if that's any of those matters, electronic discovery stuff. Then the computer automatically records that event on the blockchain. So now we have an independent witness, a third party, for lack of a better term, that can prove that that event occurred, whether that was online or offline, and then the event can be automatically authenticated by that process. And as that process becomes more and more self-sufficient and self-sustaining, people are eliminated from the process, from the step, and they are no longer witnesses. So the future can be a world where literally events occur. I'm on camera right now. That can go to a cloud. It can authenticate that I was here. And if there's ever an issue, if I need an alibi that something horrible happened somewhere and I'm the defendant, I can prove, I can automatically authenticate without calling anybody, without even having to calling any of you, go through all the time-consuming insanity of, everything, that I was here. So, no more witnesses. Cameras, documents, online, we got rid of them. Now, the witness has switched. This is going to be my little funny play on this. So we've evolved to the point where we think we're here now, but we're really kind of here. But am I looking at my screen, or is my screen looking at me? Every single thing you're doing online is tracked. That was mentioned earlier. Whether or not you know it, that's going to be a huge new set of law going forward. But all of that can be self-authenticated without needing to call somebody else in order to testify as to, what actually occurred. Now, I like to leave conversations with certain points and things like that. I think you're all here because, you care about this kind of stuff, and otherwise you wouldn't wait for the last speaker to thank you. But we can all sit here and listen to this kind of stuff, but unless you actually do anything, we're wasting our time. So go out, be the change. I've been selling into enterprise businesses for the last 3 years, and it's a nightmare. They don't like to change. People don't like to change. If you run a company, or if you are senior at a law firm, or if you are the GC or the CEO of another company, adopt change. Be on the forefront of that change. Otherwise, we're all going to be dragging ourselves into the future, and there's no need for that pain. So go do something about it. Don't just sit here and take it home and congratulate yourself for being here. Go make a change. The next time somebody asks you, what have you done in the last 90 days, have a good response for them. So thank you all, and my email is right there.
I think we'll let those be the final words. That was wonderful. So, thank you, everyone.